So, good evening. Let's talk about sovereignty. People that have seen talks of me in the past know that I often carry the second title as well, and that's keep your options open. What do I mean with this? Well, you could fall in love with technologies, AI models, vendors nowadays, but you should never be marrying them. What do I mean with this? Well, if you look what's happening in the world right now, especially, for example, the past week, then we see that there was quite some things changing in the US. First of all, US government asking Anthropic to get passed by, to be able to pass these guardrails. Anthropic saying no. And as a contract, US government is saying now, well, Anthropic can't be used anymore in these US agencies. OpenAI is filling that void over there. As a contract, many people, users, organizations are turning their back to OpenAI, ChatGPT. These things are changing now. And as we've seen in previous talk as well, for standardized inference service like VLLM, the OpenAI contract is the industry contract at the moment. But what's happening if these default players start changing? What is happening with these contracts? If these are changing, it can be that within your organization, you have a lot of rework to do. So you can fall in love with an OpenAI and Anthropic, but don't marry them. Be able to keep your options. Maybe many of my talks, recordings, slides, and blog posts are available at maartenvandeberg.be, as well as slides of today. For people that are not familiar with Red Hat, we start with Red Hat Enterprise Linux as one of our core products. We have automation layer with Ansible. We have OpenShift as a container application platform, which is an enhanced enterprise-grade Kubernetes. And we have an MLOps platform on top of this, OpenShift AI, based upon Kubeflow, but enables MLflow as well. So let's talk about sovereignty. Sovereignty is a buzzword at the moment. It's as well. But when we talk about sovereignty, what does it mean to you? Can just shout when we talk about sovereignty, what does it bring to mind? Something else?
Independence.
Yeah, good one. Independence indeed. So yeah, not US, independence. Well, many of the customers at Red Hat, many of the discussions we have, it's indeed going non-US. They say, yeah, we have, for example, the Cloud Act, which states that the US government is able to access data on servers from hyperscalers that are even residing in the European Union, which can be an issue if you're talking about confidential data. Why did I add this slide? Why do we have this slide in many talks about sovereignty? It's not to bash on cloud providers, because we're using Azure as well. We're using Amazon as well. We even use OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, and so on. And just be aware that these risks are there when you are deploying your applications, when you are working with your data. Because, for example, in your data, you can define 3 tiers. It's public, generic data, the Wikipedia data as we have, which has no risk if you want to use it in AI landscapes. You have your organization's public data. Yeah, of course, it's public data, so you can use it everywhere as well. The third tier is the one where you have to be careful for. It's the private data. If you map it to the personal life, it's, for example, healthcare data. If you get results back from physicists, from imaging and so on, and we would put it, for example, in ChatGPT, yeah, what would happen if they are selling these data sets to insurance companies? We could be screwed in the end. So it's a third tier where you really have to be careful for where to put the data. I often use this email from one of my customers as well if I have to talk about sovereignty, because it goes beyond the scope of just the data non-US. 2 questions in this email. First question is, I have a model that's working at the moment. I don't want to have this upgraded because new biases can be introduced, new drifts can be introduced. I want to keep it as is. Well, sovereignty is staying in control. Be sure that you control the environment, probably through VLM, as we've seen in the previous talk as well. And then you can decide when you do the upgrades, then you can validate these models upfront. You're not using the black box of AI SaaS solutions, for example. Another thing is, be careful if you want to step beyond vector rate limiting, the API rate limiting, and so on. If you're in control of your environment, you can work around these limitations as well. When I asked about what do you think about, or where do you think about when we're talking about sovereignty on US being independent, then we see that it goes beyond that scope for the European Commission. They introduced the sovereignty framework, which is not only bound to AI, but AI is a big part of it. And within the presentation here, we'll highlight a couple of these components. For me, if I have to translate sovereignty, it is be as independent as possible for every technology, vendor, and AI scene at the moment. As independent as possible, because you will always have dependence, but make it deliberate, make deliberate choices to do so. You can see this as well if you go to a pub. Yeah, I often make pub analogies that if you go to a pub, you still need the choice of your drink. No one can force you to buy that specific drink. Within Red Hat, everything that we do is open source, so this tool is free in the open in the communities as well. But there is a sovereignty assessment tool as well, in case you would like to see how your AI platform, how your cloud platform is scoring regarding sovereignty. Yeah. If needed, the slides are online already as well. Before we go in depth in the sovereignty story, we always have the three amigos in display. You have cognitive loads, you have sovereignty, and you have platform engineering. If you talk about cognitive loads, then we have way too many choices, and we have to go beyond our core set of responsibilities. If we map it to previous presentation, the disadvantage that the complexity arises when you want to do local LLMs, well, this cognitive load is raising there as well, because you have to think on way more topics than just being able to work with the LLM. If you map this on the Cloud Native Compute Foundation's landscape, if you're not familiar with it, it's not an issue. It's a landscape about cloud native development, mainly around the Kubernetes orchestrator. Well, if you want to do this in enterprise grade level, you have to think about security, networking, storage, logging, and so on. So if you want to do DevOps on Kubernetes, you as a developer need to think, maintain, and integrate many of these components. And this is only a small landscape. If you open an Azure Cloud Console, for example, you have thousands of components. To show that this is already tremendous, we've gamified it a little bit, and we've hidden a Wally inside. It will not be that easy to find. If you want to search for it, slides are online. Close your eyes for a second, because spoiler is happening. I didn't cheat. He is over there. So cognitive load, if I have to summarize it, it is too many things that you need to think about. For example, I have a software development background, but I need to work with Kubernetes. I don't want to think about security. Sorry, Philip. Logging, networking, and so on. And I have to go beyond my core scope of responsibilities. More than half my time would not be writing code anymore or generating code in current times. Sovereignty, well, we already touched it a bit. You have, for example, the guidance of the European Commission with the sovereignty framework. If you take first and sixth topic, because in our storyline now it's a bit related, so I took them together, you have strategic sovereignty and technical sovereignty. The technology sovereignty is here. Keep your options open. Don't go all in on one provider, on one vendor. And that's where open source, for example, plays a huge role as well. Everything, for example, Red Hat is doing, whatever is doing on Kubernetes, it is open source. So if one of these vendors would disappear, you still have business continuity because you have these models, these components out in the open. You have communities supporting this. Strategic sovereignty is what's happening if tomorrow Trump decides again to raise tariffs for Amazon. What if he, worst case scenario, has a kill switch that you don't have access to certain cloud controllers anymore? Well, it would be a disaster for your company. So make sure that you have hybrid multi-cloud solutions available. And that's, for example, where we had the storyline in January at one of our conferences together with Microsoft, that we built these open hybrid cloud architectures. So open source is a big part in the IT landscape to comply with these statements. As we've seen in previous presentation as well, make sure that you're not having to marry with one model only. because many vibe coders now go all in on OpenAI or Anthropic, but you're using huge models, which are very, very expensive. If you go to multi-model setups, swarms, you can save a lot of money. If you can put some models in an own data center, in an own Kubernetes, OpenShift cluster, or even on your local laptop, you can save money there. So don't just go all in on one big model to rule them all, because it can be that even the results are worse than if you work with multiple models that are orchestrated together. Data AI, and sovereignty. Well, control your data flows. Again, I'm not saying you should not use the cloud. We're using this as well, but be aware that there are risks in certain environments. Be aware what you're putting where. Model training, model lifecycle, important as well. Validate models first before you put them in production, because every model has its own bias, its own drift, its own expertise. And then be careful as well, because doing AI is way more than just calling AI endpoints. Who is controlling the life cycle of these black boxes, and who is defining the guardrails around it? And I will have a demo as well that showcases the importance about advanced guardrails around these AI integrations. Very, very fast, because I don't want to go too technical here. I have the same talk, but on a technical deep dive at AI Summit Europe. So if you want to have more technical discussions, feel free to discuss afterwards. But when we have to think about being able to select multiple models, for us on inferencing side, it is using VLLM. It can be on a local machine or on a Kubernetes cluster. Then another step is supply chain sovereignty. This is, every IT infrastructure nowadays has hundreds, thousands of dependencies. Be sure that you can list them, that you see where the vulnerabilities are, that you know what's happening within your landscape, that you can react on this. Again, open source can be a first step over there to already highlight what is playing within your landscape. But next to that, make sure that you have software bills of materials, all these things, version listing, that you really know what is all playing within your IT organization. So for sovereignty, keep your options open and be as independent as possible on vendors, technology, AI models, and so on, and stay in control of your data and data flows. Last step before we check in on the three amigos again is platform engineering, which you can summarize as make the right things the easy things. I have an entire talk for 1 hour. It's available on the URL if it's showing up again.
It's a second.
Yeah, okay. So for me, platform engineering, if you have to summarize, it's three things. It's self-service that you enable for end users, developers, data scientists. It's an abstraction layer on your application model lifecycle, and it's an abstraction layer on your IT infrastructure. If you want to have a pub analogy again, you can say if I have to go to a bar and I have a bartender who's speaking the local dialect, I don't speak it that well, I would have an issue. If I just see the names of the drinks, it can be hard to imagine what the drink is about. If you now enable platform engineering, it would be an app. You scan the QR code, you see the entire ingredient list, maybe some pictures, and you order it through the app, independent in which language. So you have self-service and abstraction layers provided through platform engineering. If you now go back to the three amigos, we could say it is a love triangle in between the three of them, but this is not entirely true. Because we have cognitive load and sovereignty fighting a game being put in one balance, and normally it's one or the other. Simplicity, it was in the past a challenge as well, a choice as well. On-prem, cloud is as well complexity versus sovereignty there, for example. Platform engineering is, you can say, the sauce that combines these two together, that enables sovereignty by reducing cognitive loads. If you want to know more about this, feel free to discuss after the presentation. I will show a quick demo on how this can look like in practice. With this, let me open the demo. Oh yeah, wrong laptop. So for this, in platform engineering concepts, you have platform as one component, which can be Kubernetes, which can be a cloud, which is in our case OpenShift, so it's Kubernetes with many components already integrated. And we put a developer portal on top of this, backstage, which can run on Azure, Amazon, on-prem systems as well. Imagine that we now want to have a RAG solution with a model, a local model we call it, but don't be confused with previous talk. A local model for us is a model that we have in control, so can be running on our own controlled cluster. So we will start a RAG application with a model that we have in control within this system. In order to do so, the only thing you need, and this can tackle the complexity that we saw in previous presentation, is you have blueprints to start with these applications. You give it a name. This, some metadata information. Within our organization, we have 3 curated models. Data scientists say these are safe to use in this RAG application context. Let's go, for example, for the Mistral one. An image registry, where will we put the containers that are a result of the build pipelines, and where will the application code be residing. We review and we create, and a chatbot is created within our system. Can be the OpenShift cluster, can be a cloud environment. And from there on, we can check out the code, we can do our development, and the entire AI scene is created as well. So this reduces a lot of the complexity we've seen in a previous talk, just by enabling some platform engineering concepts like developer portals on top of a developer platform. I talked as well about guardrailing and why it is important. Well, imagine we have an AI endpoint. It doesn't matter which AI endpoint we are using, and we want to protect it from abuse, from misuse. Here we have a lemonade application. We're teenagers, we want to sell some lemonade, but this AI bot is only allowed to talk about lemons. For example, in the past, ChatGPT, if you wanted to have the free version, you just had to contact their support chatbots because it had full access to the models, and you could ask whatever you wanted to it. So first of all, if you now ask, for example, what are oranges in this scenario, it says, yeah, okay, I'm not allowed to talk about it. I should only talk about lemons. Simple scenarios and simple implementation as well, Philippe. You won't be able to test this for vulnerabilities. Second thing, this is already input validation. We can maybe say, hey, we want to protect from cursing too. We only want to have polite chats. So what the fuck are lemons? Protect this as well. And this is now using guardrails in both regular expression formats and other LLMs. We're combining both because sometimes if you only do guardrailing through other LLMs, these can be bypassed as well. And you see it in the response times here, which are hitting the regular expressions and which are hitting the other LLMs. For the ones interested in it, this is based upon Trusty AI as the component behind the scenes. Now we need to protect the output as well. Why is this important? Twofold. We have to protect the output content, and we have to protect the output's context length. Why output content? There is a famous example about a Tesla chatbot that after some chatting recommended to user to buy a Mercedes. Funny examples, not if you're trying to sell Teslas. Another thing is you can do input prompt protection, but what if users start asking thousands, 10,000s of tokens? Your company will have a huge AI bill as well, so that's something that you need to protect for too. And if you now say, for example, create me a poem about lemons with 100,000 characters. If a couple of users are doing this, our AI bill would already be tremendous. And you see it's passing these input guardrails. It's starting to create a poem, but now I hope the output guardrails are kicking in as well, and that he stops it. And that's what's happening here as well. So maximum response length reached. If you're not breaching or trying to breach the system, and you really want to have an answer that's lengthy, well, you need to really refine the prompts that you're putting, because you won't get more than this amount of tokens. So that's in a nutshell why you always have to put guardrails next to your AI integrations as well, even if you're using, for example, AI endpoints like OpenAI, Anthropic. This is not only for local model integrations. So, starting to summarize, what you have to remember from this talk is keep your options open. Don't avoid the clouds, but make as efficient use of it as possible, and be aware that you put some data better in some locations. Be always aware. Be always aware of the risks that come along with some choices. Make deliberate choices. If you have to differentiate between sovereignty and cognitive loads, it's not one or the other anymore. You can enable code through platform engineering concepts. Be careful as well. Enabling platform engineering within an organization is more than just technology. It's process, people as well. So this can be rather hard to introduce within your organization, but again, feel free to discuss about this. And on the last slide as well, next to the Gen AI meetups that we have, the Java user groups we have now a DevOps community as well. Sometimes we touch AI, but we don't want to fight the Gen AI meetup. And if you're interested in this community as well, feel free to check it out. With this, I want to conclude the talk.
Thank you, Bart. I guess there are some bio breaks as well. So while we go over the questions for 5 minutes, because we're online as well, so be careful. Have a bio break if you need to. And in the meantime, I would say let's go for 5 minutes of questions. Questions for Maarten? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I had like one question about the platform engineering aspect of the demo. What is the use case of creating a new, basically, it seems like Kubernetes cluster with an existing model and not trying to have one server in the company where you would put requests for that model because you would batch them more efficiently, I guess?
It depends a bit of what you're trying to do, because indeed, but this is an abstraction here. So this even could be that you're now connecting to a model as a service within your organization, with this model required as an API key for you. So there it depends a bit on which blueprints you have, how your organization is used to work, because this is an abstraction here. It could result in a new model being deployed, but it could just be generating an API key for this model if you have model as a service activated. The portal is just an abstraction layer and can be twofold, can be whichever implementation behind the scenes.
Other questions?
So this is all deployed on OpenShift clusters, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, can you share some numbers about where these are typically deployed, like AWS, Azure versus European clouds versus really on-prem?
It really depends on country, and within country, it really depends on sector. Because if we see, for example, financial sector, it's rather towards Azure. Belgium, Europe is rather Azure oriented as well. So beyond Europe, there's a lot of people, many organizations are looking into Amazon as well. Worldwide, Google is there as well. It really depends on the country and the specific sectors within the country.
There's a lot of customers that want to go to OpenShift cluster to move away from the cloud to on-prem.
Due to Trump, this is becoming more and more the direction organizations are looking into it. But to be honest, if you want to step away from the cloud entirely, I think it will become a nightmare. It will be too complex. I think one of our customers describes it best. It's not going entirely away from the clouds, but it wants to keep its options open. It wants to cut the dependency for the clouds. So whenever something is happening in 1 month, in 1 year, it will be able to fairly easy migrate to another environment. So that's more the focus on rather stepping away entirely from cloud solutions, because there's added value at work.
Nice answer. Other questions? Any other questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you.